the inverted crawl. I've always found solace in the mountains. There's something about the crisp air, the rustling leaves, and the distant chirping of birds that just speaks to me. But I guess that's not surprising, given my unique ability. You see, I can hear things others can't, ultra-low frequency sounds that most people would never notice. It's both a gift and a curse, really. That day started like any other hiking trip. I packed my usual gear, a sturdy backpack, water bottles, energy bars, and my trusty hiking boots. The weather forecast promised a perfect day for a hike, partly cloudy with a gentle breeze. As I drove to my favorite trailhead, I couldn't shake off this nagging feeling that something was different. I've been up this mountain countless times, but today, I decided to take a less traveled path. Maybe it was my subconscious trying to tell me something, or maybe it was just my adventurous spirit kicking in. Either way, that decision would change everything. The first hour of the hike was uneventful. The trail was rougher than my usual route, with more rocks and roots to navigate. But I enjoyed the challenge. It made me feel alive, you know? The forest around me was a symphony of familiar sounds, the crunch of leaves under my feet, the occasional snap of a twig, the distant call of a hawk. But then, something changed. It started as a faint vibration, barely noticeable at first. I paused, tilting my head slightly, trying to pinpoint the source. It wasn't like anything I'd heard before, not the low rumble of distant thunder, not the hum of far-off machinery. No, this was different. Alien, almost. I tried to shake it off, convince myself it was just my imagination. But as I continued up the trail, the vibration grew stronger. It was a pulsing, rhythmic sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The kind of sound that you feel in your bones more than you hear with your ears. Have you ever had that feeling where the hairs on the back of your neck stand up? Where your instincts are screaming at you that something's not right, even though you can't explain why? That's how I felt as I pushed deeper into the forest. The trees seemed to close in around me, their branches reaching out like gnarled fingers. The cheerful birdsong that had accompanied me earlier had faded away, replaced by an eerie silence broken only by that persistent, unsettling vibration. I've always trusted my ears. They've never led me astray before. But at that moment, I found myself wishing for the first time that I couldn't hear what I was hearing. Because with each step I took, that sound grew stronger, more insistent. It was as if the mountain itself was trying to tell me something, warn me perhaps. I considered turning back. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to run, to get as far away from that sound as possible. But curiosity, that damned, irresistible human trait, kept me moving forward. I had to know what was causing it. I had to understand. As I climbed higher, the air seemed to thicken. It became harder to breathe, as if the oxygen was being slowly sucked out of the atmosphere. The vibration had evolved into a low, constant hum that made my teeth ache and my vision blur. I faced my fair share of challenges on these mountains: sudden storms, close encounters with wildlife, even a near fall off a cliff once. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared me for what I was experiencing now. The trail ahead of me seemed to shimmer, like heat rising off asphalt on a scorching summer day. But it wasn't hot. If anything, the temperature had dropped several degrees since I first noticed the sound. I rubbed my eyes, trying to clear my vision, but the distortion remained. It was then that I noticed something else. The plants around me, they didn't look quite right. I couldn't put my finger on it at first, but as I focused, I realized what was wrong. The leaves, the flowers, even the moss on the rocks, they all seemed to be growing at slightly odd angles. Not dramatically, but just off. As if gravity wasn't quite working the way it should. I reached out to touch a nearby fern, half expecting my hand to pass right through it. But no, it was solid, real. Yet when I let go, the frond didn't spring back to its original position. Instead, it slowly, almost imperceptibly, began to bend in the opposite direction of what was natural. The vibration had become a physical force now, pulsing through my body with each heartbeat. I felt dizzy, disoriented. The world around me seemed to be slowly tilting, like I was on the deck of a ship in rough seas. I've always prided myself on being level-headed, on being able to rationalize even the strangest experiences. But in that moment, standing on that lonely mountain trail with that unnatural sound filling my ears and the very fabric of reality seeming to warp around me, I felt true fear for the first time in my life. I wanted to run, to turn back and flee down the mountain as fast as my legs could carry me. But something held me in place. Whether it was paralyzing fear or morbid fascination, I couldn't say. All I knew was that I was rooted to the spot, my eyes darting around, trying to make sense of what I was seeing and hearing. The trees, were they always that tall? And why did their branches seem to be reaching towards the ground instead of the sky? I blinked hard, trying to clear my vision, but the bizarre scene remained. I fumbled for my water bottle, suddenly parched. As I raised it to my lips, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The water inside wasn't sitting at the bottom of the bottle as it should. Instead, it was clinging to the cap, defying gravity. This couldn't be real. It had to be some sort of hallucination, right? Maybe I'd eaten some bad berries, or hit my head without realizing it. But deep down, I knew. This was happening. This was real. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. I needed to think, to plan. Should I press on, try to find the source of this madness? Or should I turn back, try to escape while I still could? The vibration seemed to pulse in time with my thoughts, as if it was alive, aware. As I stood there, paralyzed by indecision, I became aware of another sound beneath the omnipresent vibration. It was faint at first, barely perceptible even to my sensitive ears. But as I focused on it, it grew clearer. It was a sound I'd never heard before, yet it filled me with an instinctive, primal dread. It was the sound of something moving through the underbrush. But not in any way that was natural or familiar. No, this sound was wrong. It was as if whatever was making it was moving in a way that defied the laws of physics. I held my breath, straining my ears. The sound was getting closer. Closer. And with each passing second, the vibration in the air grew stronger, more insistent. It was no longer just a sound, it was a physical force, pressing against me from all sides. I wanted to run. Every fiber of my being was screaming at me to flee. But my legs wouldn't move. It was as if the very air had turned to molasses, holding me in place. And then, just as I thought I couldn't take it anymore, just as I was sure I would lose my mind from the tension and the fear, everything stopped. The vibration cut off so suddenly that the silence was deafening. The bizarre gravitational effects seemed to reset, leaves and branches snapping back to their natural positions so quickly that the entire forest seemed to shudder. For a moment, I stood there, gasping for breath, my heart pounding in my ears. Had it all been some sort of strange hallucination? a waking nightmare brought on by exhaustion or dehydration. But as I looked around, I knew that wasn't the case. Because while things appeared normal at first glance, there were changes. Subtle, but undeniable. The trail I had been following was gone, replaced by undisturbed forest floor. The familiar landmarks I had been using to navigate were either missing or in the wrong places. And the sun was in a completely different position in the sky than it should have been, given the time I'd started my hike. I was lost. Not just in terms of location, but in a more fundamental sense. I felt as if I had stepped through some sort of portal into a world that was almost, but not quite, my own. As the initial shock wore off, I forced myself to take stock of my situation. My gear was still intact. I had water, food, and my emergency kit. But my phone, when I pulled it out, showed no signal. And the compass app was going haywire, the needle spinning wildly in all directions. I knew I needed to get off this mountain, to find my way back to civilization. But which way was down? In every direction, the forest looked equally unfamiliar and foreboding. For the first time since I'd started hiking years ago, I felt truly, utterly alone. The forest, which had always been a place of comfort and adventure for me, now felt alien and hostile. As I stood there, trying to decide what to do next, I became aware of a new sound. It was faint, barely audible even to my sensitive ears. But it was there, a low, rhythmic pulsing that seemed to come from deep within the earth itself. The vibration was back. And somehow, I knew that this was just the beginning. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever might come next. I didn't know what had happened, or what was still to come. But I knew one thing for certain: I had to find a way off this mountain. Before whatever force had caused these strange phenomena returned in full force. With one last look around at the altered landscape, I picked a direction that seemed to slope downward and started walking. Each step felt like a gamble, a choice that could lead me to safety or deeper into this nightmare. As I moved, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Not by anything I could see, but by some presence that permeated the very air around me. The forest, once so familiar, now felt like an alien world, full of hidden dangers and impossible physics. The faint vibration continued, a constant reminder that whatever had happened wasn't over. It was as if the mountain itself was holding its breath, waiting for something. And I was caught in the middle of it all, a lone hiker stumbling through a reality that no longer played by the rules I understood. I've always believed in trusting my instincts, and listening to what my senses tell me. But now, for the first time in my life, I found myself doubting everything I saw and heard. Because if what I had experienced was real and deep down, I knew it was, then nothing could be taken for granted anymore. As I pushed on through the altered forest, I couldn't help but wonder, was I still on the same mountain I had started climbing this morning? Or had I somehow crossed over into somewhere else entirely? And more importantly, was there any way back? The vibration pulsed on, a heartbeat of the impossible. And with each step I took, I felt myself moving further from the world I knew, and deeper into a mystery that defied explanation. This is where I find myself now, lost in a forest that should be familiar but isn't, haunted by sounds that shouldn't exist, and grappling with a reality that seems to be unraveling around me. I don't know what's going to happen next, or if I'll ever make it off this mountain. But I do know one thing: nothing will ever be the same again. Because once you've heard the impossible, once you've seen reality itself bend and warp, there's no going back. There's only forward, into the unknown. And so I walk on, each step a leap of faith, each breath a silent prayer. The mountain has shown me its secrets, whether I wanted to see them or not. Now all I can do is hope that I'll live to tell the tale. As the day wears on and the shadows lengthen, I can't shake the feeling that this is only the beginning. That the true test, the real horror, is yet to come. But for now, I focus on putting one foot in front of the other, on finding my way through this twisted version of a once familiar landscape. The vibration continues, a constant companion on this surreal journey. And as I walk, I can't help but wonder, what other impossible things are waiting to be discovered in the depths of this transformed forest? And more importantly, will I survive long enough to find out? Only time will tell. And in this place, where the very laws of nature seem to be in flux, even time itself might not be a constant I can rely on. You know that feeling when you're sure you're awake, but everything around you feels like a dream? That's where I found myself. I mean, I've had some weird experiences in my life, but this took the cake. So there I was, lost in a forest that should have been as familiar to me as the back of my hand. But let me tell you, nothing was familiar anymore. Nothing at all. I kept walking, hoping to find something, anything that made sense. And that's when I saw it. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. I mean, they had to be, right? But no matter how many times I blinked or rubbed my eyes, the scene in front of me didn't change. The trees. God, the trees. They were growing upside down. I'm not talking about just a few trees here and there. I'm talking about every single tree as far as the eye could see. Their roots were reaching up towards the sky, while their branches burrowed into the ground. It was like someone had flipped the whole forest on its head. I couldn't help but laugh. It was that kind of laugh you do when you're scared out of your mind but you don't know what else to do. You know the one? This can't be real, I said out loud, my voice sounding strange and hollow in the eerie silence of this upside-down world. But it was real. As real as the ground beneath my feet, which, thankfully, still seemed to be where it should be. I approached one of the trees, half expecting it to be some kind of elaborate illusion. But when I touched the bark, it felt real. Cold and rough under my fingers, just like any other tree. Except, completely wrong. The leaves were growing downwards, rustling gently in a breeze I couldn't feel. And the fruits, oh man, the fruits. They were hanging up towards the sky, defying gravity like it was nothing. I plucked one of these upside-down apples, turning it over in my hand. It looked normal enough, but I couldn't bring myself to take a bite. Who knows what eating something from this twisted place might do to me? As I stood there, apple in hand, trying to make sense of what I was seeing, that vibration I'd felt earlier started up again. But this time, it was different. Stronger. More purposeful, if that makes any sense. And then I heard it. A sound that made my blood run cold. It was like something scraping against bark. But wrong. So wrong. I turned slowly, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. And that's when I saw it. Look, I've seen some strange things in my life. Comes with the territory when you can hear things others can't. But this was something else entirely. It was crawling. But not like any animal I've ever seen. It was moving upside down, its body contorted in ways that shouldn't be possible. Its limbs bent at impossible angles, fingers or were they claws? Digging into the bark of the upside-down trees as it moved. I couldn't make out any details. It was like my eyes refused to focus on it properly. But I could see enough to know that this thing, whatever it was, wasn't natural. Wasn't from our world. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Me, frozen in terror. It, clinging to the tree, its head, at least, I think it was its head, tilted as if it was studying me. And then it made a sound. A sound that bypassed my ears and went straight to my bones. It was that same vibration I'd been feeling, but 100 times stronger. 1,000 times. I dropped the apple and ran. I didn't know where I was going. Didn't care. All I knew was that I had to get away from that thing. But in this upside-down forest, running wasn't easy. The ground was uneven, covered in branches that should have been reaching for the sky but were instead tangled around my feet. I tripped, fell, got up, and kept running. The whole time, I could hear it behind me. That scraping sound. That bone-deep vibration. Getting closer. Always closer. I don't know how long I ran. Time seemed to have lost all meaning in this place. But eventually, I couldn't run anymore. My lungs were burning, my legs felt like jelly. I collapsed against one of those upside-down trees, gasping for breath. For a moment, there was silence. No scraping. No vibration. Had I lost it? But then I felt it. A presence. Right above me. I looked up, and there it was. Clinging to the tree trunk, its body twisted in ways that made my mind scream. It was looking right at me. And I realized something that turned my blood to ice. It wasn't crawling on the trees. From its perspective, I was the one who was upside down. In its world, in this twisted version of reality, I was the one defying gravity. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. All I could do was stare as it slowly, so slowly, began to descend towards me. As it got closer, I could start to make out more details. And let me tell you, I wish I couldn't. Its skin, if you could call it that, seemed to shift and ripple, like it couldn't decide what form to take. Its eyes, God, its eyes, they were everywhere and nowhere at once. It reached out towards me with a limb that was neither arm nor leg, but something in between. And as it touched me, the world shifted. Suddenly, I was the one clinging to the tree trunk. The ground was above me, the sky below. My stomach lurched, and I felt like I was going to be sick. The creature was standing on the ground now, or was it the sky? Looking up at me. And I swear, I could see something like curiosity in those ever-shifting eyes. It made that sound again, that vibration that I felt more than heard. But this time, it was almost like it was trying to communicate. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the terror. Maybe it was the impossible situation I found myself in. But I found myself trying to mimic the sound. To create that same vibration. And you know what? It worked. I felt the vibration start in my chest and resonate outward. The creature tilted its head, or what I assumed was its head, and for a moment, we were connected by this impossible sound. That's when things got really weird. I know. You're probably thinking, how could things possibly get weirder? But trust me, they did. As we communicated through these vibrations, the world around us started to shift again. The trees began to twist, turning sideways, then right side up, then upside down again. It was like reality itself couldn't decide which way was up. I felt dizzy, nauseous. But I couldn't stop. Somehow, I knew that this connection, this bizarre form of communication, was important. Maybe even crucial to my survival. The creature moved closer, its form still shifting and changing. One moment it looked almost human, the next it was something I couldn't even begin to describe. But those eyes remained constant. Watching. Studying. Understanding? I don't know how long we stayed like that, suspended in this twisted reality, talking through vibrations that defied everything I thought I knew about sound. But gradually, something started to change. The world around us began to stabilize. The trees settled into a position, still upside down, but at least they weren't moving anymore. And the creature, it started to look more solid. More defined. That's when I realized something that shook me to my core. This thing, this impossible being, was just as confused and scared as I was. It was lost, trapped in a world it didn't understand. Just like me. Slowly, carefully, I reached out towards it. It mirrored my movement, extending what I could now clearly see was a hand. When our fingers touched, there was a spark. Not of electricity, but of understanding. In that moment, I saw flashes of its world. A place where gravity worked differently, where what we would call up was down and vice versa. I saw creatures that defied description, moving through a landscape that hurt my brain to look at. And I knew it was seeing my world too. The forests I loved, the mountains I'd climbed. The world that now seemed so far away. When the connection broke, we both pulled back. I found myself back on solid ground, the creature once again clinging to the upside-down tree. But something had changed. The fear was gone, replaced by a sense of wonder? Curiosity? It made that vibration sound again, but this time, I understood it. Not as words, exactly, but as feelings. Concepts. It was asking for help. It was lost, pulled into my world by some force it didn't understand. And now it couldn't find its way back. I nodded, trying to convey through my own vibrations that I understood. That I would try to help. Even though I had no idea how I could possibly do that. As if in response to our newfound understanding, the forest around us began to change again. But this time, it wasn't chaotic. It was like reality was trying to find a compromise between our two worlds. The trees slowly righted themselves, but the leaves remained pointing downwards. Gravity seemed to fluctuate, objects floating gently up and down as if underwater. I took a step towards the creature, and it mimicked my movement. We began to explore this new, hybrid reality together. Each step was a negotiation between our different ways of moving, our different understandings of how the world should work. As we walked, I noticed more changes. Colors that shouldn't exist. Sounds that seemed to have shape and form. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once. I don't know how long we wandered through that impossible landscape. Time didn't seem to work the same way here. But gradually, I started to understand more about this creature, about its world. And I think it was understanding more about me, too. We came to a clearing, if you could call it that, in this twisted version of reality. And there, hanging in the air, was something that looked like a tear. A rip in the very fabric of space. The creature stopped, its ever-shifting form seeming to vibrate with excitement. It turned to me, and I knew. This was its way home. Part of me was relieved. This nightmare was almost over. I could go back to my world, my normal life. But another part was sad. I had seen and experienced things that no other human ever had. And now it was coming to an end. The creature reached out to me one last time. When our hands touched, I felt a rush of gratitude. Of friendship, even. It had been just as scared as I was, but together, we had found a way through. As it moved towards the tearing reality, it turned back one last time. It made that vibration sound, but now I understood it perfectly. It was saying goodbye. And thank you. Then it was gone, slipping through the tear like it was diving into water. The moment it disappeared, the world around me began to shift again. The hybrid reality we had created together started to dissolve. I felt a moment of panic. What if I got stuck in between? What if I couldn't find my way back to my own world? But then I heard something. A sound so normal, so beautifully ordinary, that I almost cried. It was the chirping of a bird. A regular, earth bird. I turned towards the sound, and as I did, the twisted forest faded away. The upside-down trees, the impossible colors, the fluctuating gravity, all of it disappeared like mist in the morning sun. And just like that, I was back. Standing in a normal forest, on a normal mountain. If it wasn't for the setting sun, hadn't it been morning just a moment ago? I might have thought I'd imagined the whole thing. But I knew I hadn't. The memory of the creature, of the upside-down world, was too vivid. Too real. I made my way back down the mountain in a daze. My mind was reeling, trying to process everything that had happened. By the time I reached my car, the stars were out. As I drove home, I couldn't help but look at the world differently. Every tree, every rock, every star in the sky, they all held the possibility of another world. Another reality. I know most people wouldn't believe me if I told them what happened. Hell, part of me still doesn't believe it. But I know what I experienced. I know what I saw. And I know that somewhere out there, in some upside-down world that defies our laws of physics, there's a creature that remembers me too. A creature that, for a brief, impossible moment, was my friend. I don't know if I'll ever experience anything like that again. Part of me hopes I do. Part of me hopes I don't. But one thing's for sure, I'll never look at the world the same way again. And every time I go hiking, every time I hear a strange sound or see something out of the corner of my eye that doesn't quite make sense, I'll wonder. Because now I know. Our world, our reality, it's just one of many. And sometimes, just sometimes, those other realities bleed into ours. And if you're very lucky or very unlucky, depending on how you look at it, you might just get to see it happen. So the next time you're out in the woods and you hear a strange sound, or see something that doesn't quite make sense, don't dismiss it. Don't explain it away. Because you never know. You might be about to step into another world. Just like I did. And let me tell you, it's one hell of a ride. You ever had one of those moments where you think, okay, it can't possibly get any weirder than this? Yeah, well, let me tell you, it can. And it did. So there I was, standing in what I thought was my normal, everyday forest again. Man, was I wrong. I mean, sure, at first glance everything looked normal. Trees were right side up, gravity was behaving itself, you know, the usual. But then I noticed something that made my stomach do a backflip. The leaves. They were falling up. I'm not talking about a gentle float on the breeze here. These leaves were shooting up into the sky like they were being sucked into some kind of reverse black hole. And that's when I realized time was going backwards. Now, I know what you're thinking. Time going backwards? Come on, that's impossible. Trust me, I thought the same thing. But when you see a bird unfly back into its egg, you start to question everything you thought you knew about reality. I stood there, frozen, watching as the sun started moving from west to east. The shadows were shrinking instead of growing. And that's when I heard it, that low, pulsing vibration again. But this time, it was different. It was like the universe itself was rewinding. Remember how I told you about my special hearing? Well, let me tell you, it kicked into overdrive right then and there. Suddenly, I could hear everything. The sound of grass ungrowing, the reversal of a nearby stream's flow, even the earth itself seemed to be groaning as it spun in the wrong direction. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once. And I knew, deep in my bones, that if I didn't figure out a way to stop this, I might just unexist myself right out of reality. So I did the only thing I could think of. I started walking. Or trying to, anyway. Have you ever tried to walk forward when time is going backwards? It's like trying to swim upstream in a river of molasses. Every step was a struggle, fighting against the flow of reverse time. But here's the weird thing: as I walked, I started to notice patterns in the sounds around me. The vibrations weren't random. They had a rhythm, a pulse. And somehow, I knew that if I could just understand that rhythm, I might be able to navigate this backwards world. So I closed my eyes and just listened. Really listened, you know. And slowly, the chaotic noise started to make sense. I could hear the layers of sound, the deep, slow pulse of the earth's rotation, the faster rhythm of plant growth, or ungrowth in this case, and a million other tiny sounds all weaving together into this impossible symphony. And then I did something crazy. I started to hum. Yeah, I know, sounds ridiculous, right? But it wasn't just any humming. I was trying to match the rhythm of the world around me. To sync up with the backwards flow of time. At first, nothing happened. But then, as I adjusted my pitch, my tempo, suddenly it was like I was in tune with the universe. The resistance I felt while walking disappeared. I could move freely again. But man, let me tell you, it was disorienting as hell. I was walking forward, but everything around me was moving backwards. I saw squirrels unburying nuts, flowers closing up their petals, even a fallen tree slowly standing back up and reattaching its broken branches. As I walked, I realized something else: my hearing wasn't just letting me navigate this backwards world. It was showing me things. Things that had happened in the past. Or was it the future now? God, this time stuff is confusing. Anyway, I could hear conversations that had happened days, weeks, maybe even years ago. Hikers planning their routes, animals communicating, even the whisper of seeds sprouting. It was like the whole history of the forest was playing out in reverse, and I had front row seats to all of it. But it wasn't all fascinating discoveries and cool time tricks. No, sir. The longer I stayed in this backwards world, the more I felt like I was fading. It's hard to explain, but it was like my memories were slipping away. My sense of self was getting fuzzy around the edges. I knew I had to find a way back to normal time, and fast. But how do you find your way home when home might not even exist yet? Or maybe it already unexisted? Damn, my head hurts just thinking about it. That's when I heard something that made my blood run cold. It was that creature again. The one from the upside-down world. But this time, it sounded angry. Scared. Like it was trapped, just like me. I realized then that maybe, just maybe, we were both caught in the same time loop. Both of us trying to find our way back to our own realities. And suddenly, I had an idea. A crazy, probably suicidal idea, but hey, when you're stuck in backwards time, beggars can't be choosers, right? I started moving towards the sound of the creature. It wasn't easy. The closer I got, the more chaotic the time reversal became. I saw trees grow from fully mature to saplings in the blink of an eye. Rocks eroded and then uneroded. It was like the fabric of reality itself was unraveling around me. But I kept going. I had to. Because somehow, I knew that this creature and we were connected. Our meeting had caused this time slip, and maybe, just maybe, meeting again could fix it. As I got closer, the vibrations got stronger. So strong that I could feel them in my teeth, in my bones. It was like being at a rock concert, but instead of music, it was the sound of time itself tearing apart. And then, suddenly, there it was. The creature. But it looked different. Younger, maybe? It was hard to tell with something so alien. We locked eyes, or what I assumed were eyes, and in that moment, I felt a connection. A understanding. Without thinking, I reached out my hand. The creature did the same. And as our fingers, or whatever they were for the creature, touched, everything stopped. The world around us froze. No more backwards motion. No more ungrowing plants or unflying birds. Just stillness. For a moment, we just stood there, connected, in this bubble of frozen time. And then, slowly, things started moving again. But this time, in the right direction. I watched as leaves fell down instead of up. As the sun moved from east to west. As time, beautiful, normal, forward-moving time, reasserted itself. The creature and I looked at each other one last time. There was a sense of gratitude? Relief? It's hard to put into words. And then, just like that, it was gone. Disappeared into thin air. I stood there for a long time, just breathing, feeling the normal flow of time wash over me. It was like coming up for air after being underwater for too long. Everything felt new, vibrant, alive. As I made my way back down the mountain, for real this time, I couldn't help but wonder about what had happened. Had it all been real? Or some kind of bizarre hallucination? But I knew, deep down, that it had been real. The memory of the backwards world, of the creature, of the sounds of time unraveling, it was all too vivid, too intense to be anything but truth. I've been back to that mountain many times since then. Things always seem normal now. But sometimes, when the wind is just right, I swear I can hear a faint echo of that time-reversing vibration. And I wonder, I wonder if somewhere out there, in some fold of time or space, that creature is wondering about me too. So yeah, that's my story. Crazy, right? But I swear to you, every word of it is true. And let me tell you, it's changed me. I don't take time for granted anymore. Every second, every moment, it's precious. Because now I know, it can all change in an instant. And my hearing? Well, let's just say I pay a lot more attention to the sounds around me now. Because you never know when you might hear something impossible. Something that might just turn your world upside down. Or backwards. So the next time you're out in the woods and you hear something strange, something that doesn't quite fit, don't ignore it. Listen. Really listen. Because you never know what secrets the universe might be whispering to you. And who knows? Maybe you'll have your own impossible adventure to tell. Just remember, sometimes, the key to survival isn't in what you see, but in what you hear. Trust your senses, even when they're telling you something that seems impossible. Because in a world where time can flow backwards and creatures from other dimensions can appear, well, anything is possible. Stay curious, my friends. And always, always keep listening. You know that feeling when you wake up from a nightmare, and for a split second, you're not sure if you're still dreaming? Yeah, well, imagine feeling like that for hours on end. That's where I found myself after my little adventure with time going backwards. I thought I was in the clear, you know? Time seemed to be moving forward again, the sun was setting in the west like it should, and I was making my way down the mountain. But then things got weird. Again. It started small. I noticed my footprints appearing in front of me before I even took a step. At first, I thought I was just seeing things. I mean, after everything that had happened, a little visual weirdness seemed par for the course, right? But then I felt it. This pull. Like gravity had suddenly shifted. And before I knew what was happening, I was walking backwards. Not just backwards like you'd do for fun as a kid. No, I mean my whole body was moving in reverse. I panicked. Wouldn't you? I tried to turn around, to walk normally, but it was like my body had a mind of its own. Every step I took was bringing me back up the mountain, back towards, well, I didn't know what, but I knew it couldn't be good. And that's when I saw it again. That thing. That creature from before. But this time, I got a good look at it. And let me tell you, I wish I hadn't. From a distance, it looked like a person. Just a normal hiker, you know? But as it got closer, crawling along the ground in that impossible, upside-down way, I realized how wrong I was. Its limbs were all wrong. Too long, too bendy. Like someone had taken a human and stretched them out like putty. And its face. God, its face. It was like looking at one of those funhouse mirrors, you know? Everything was there: eyes, nose, mouth, but all in the wrong places, all moving and shifting like they couldn't decide where to settle. I wanted to run. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to get the hell out of there. But I couldn't. My body just kept moving backwards, step by step, bringing me closer to that thing. As we got closer to each other, I started to hear that vibration again. But this time, it wasn't just in my ears. I could feel it in my bones, in my teeth, in the pit of my stomach. It was like the world itself was humming, getting ready for something big. And then, just as I thought things couldn't get any crazier, I started to float. Yeah, you heard me right. Float. Like gravity had just decided to take a coffee break. There I was, suspended in midair, still moving backwards, with this impossible creature crawling towards me on nothing. And that's when I had a thought. A crazy, terrifying thought. What if this was it? What if this was how the world ended? Not with a bang, but with time and space folding in on themselves, turning everything inside out and upside down? I closed my eyes, trying to think. To come up with some kind of plan. But how do you plan for something like this? It's not like they teach what to do when reality breaks in school, you know? And then I remembered. The vibration. The sound. My hearing. It had helped me before, hadn't it? Maybe it could help me again. So I did the only thing I could think of. I started to hum. Not any particular tune, mind you. Just humming. Trying to match the frequency of that bone-deep vibration I was feeling. At first, nothing happened. But then, slowly, I felt something change. The backwards pull lessened. Just a bit, but it was enough to give me hope. I opened my eyes, and saw that the creature had stopped too. It was just watching me. Its ever-shifting face seemed almost curious. So I kept humming. Louder now, more confident. And as I did, I noticed something. The world around us was flickering. Like reality itself was a faulty light bulb, flicking between normal and this twisted, backwards version. I don't know how long we stayed like that. Me, floating and humming. The creature, watching. The world, flickering. It could have been minutes. It could have been hours. Time didn't seem to mean much anymore. But then, just when I thought I couldn't hum anymore, when my throat was raw and my head was spinning, everything stopped. The flickering ceased. Gravity reasserted itself, and I fell to the ground with a thud. The creature, well, it was gone. Vanished into thin air. For a long moment, I just lay there on the forest floor, breathing hard, trying to process what had just happened. Had I done it? Had I somehow fixed things? Slowly, carefully, I stood up. Took a step forward. Then another. Normal steps. Forward steps. I almost cried with relief. But I knew I wasn't out of the woods yet. Literally or figuratively. Because now I had a choice to make. A big one. See, I could try to go back to my normal life. Pretend none of this ever happened. Chalk it up to a weird dream or a hallucination brought on by altitude sickness or something. Or I could try to understand it. To figure out what had happened, and why. Maybe even find a way to control it. It was tempting, you know? The idea of having that kind of power. To be able to manipulate time and space. To see and experience things no other human ever had. But then I thought about that creature. About how lost and scared it had seemed. About how close our world had come to, what? Ending? Changing? I didn't know, and that was the problem. I realized then that some things aren't meant to be understood. Some powers aren't meant to be controlled. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away. So that's what I did. I turned my back on that mountain, on the echoes of backwards time and impossible creatures. I walked away, back towards the normal world, with its traffic jams and bills and everyday problems. But let me tell you, it wasn't easy. With every step I took, I could feel the pull of that other world. The whisper of power, of knowledge beyond human understanding. It was like a siren's song, trying to lure me back. And my hearing, well, it's never been the same since. Sometimes, when it's quiet, I can still hear echoes of that vibration. Still feel the pulse of time moving in ways it shouldn't. I've never told anyone this story before. Who would believe me, right? But I'm telling you now because, well, because I think people should know. Should understand that there's more to this world than we can see or hear or touch. So the next time you're out in the woods, or even just walking down the street, and you feel something off. A shift in the air, a sound that doesn't quite fit, a flicker in the corner of your eye. Don't ignore it. But don't chase it either. Some mysteries are meant to stay mysteries. Some experiences are meant to change us, not to be understood. As for me, I still go hiking. Still love the mountains. But I stick to the well-traveled paths now. And if I ever hear that vibration again, feel that backwards pull, well, let's just say I've got my humming ready. Because sometimes, the most extreme choice you can make is to choose normality. To walk away from the extraordinary and embrace the ordinary. It's not always easy, but sometimes it's necessary. So here I am, living my normal life. Going to work, paying my bills, watching TV. But always, always listening. Always aware that just beneath the surface of our everyday world, there's something else. Something strange and wonderful and terrifying. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Because now I know. Now I understand. The world is bigger, stranger, and more beautiful than we can possibly imagine. And sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is to accept that, and keep on living anyway. So that's my story. Believe it or don't. But next time you're out in the woods and you hear something strange, well, maybe think twice before you go investigating. Some mysteries are better left unsolved. Trust me on that. You ever had one of those experiences that just sticks with you? Like, no matter how hard you try to shake it off, it's always there, lurking in the back of your mind? Yeah, well, that's what that damn mountain did to me. I thought I'd left it all behind, you know? The backwards walking, the freaky creature, the whole time-bending nightmare. But turns out, leaving the mountain was the easy part. Living with what happened there? That's a whole other story. At first, everything seemed normal. I went back to my job, hung out with friends, did all the usual stuff. But then the sounds started. It was little things at first. The hum of the refrigerator sounding a bit off. The rustle of leaves outside my window seeming louder than it should be. I brushed it off, you know? Told myself I was just being paranoid. But it kept getting worse. I'd be sitting in a crowded restaurant, trying to have a conversation with a friend, and suddenly I could hear every single conversation in the place. Clear as day, like everyone was shouting right into my ear. It was overwhelming, you know? Like my brain was being overloaded with information it couldn't process. And it wasn't just the volume. It was like I could hear things I shouldn't be able to. The sound of plants growing. the heartbeats of people around me. Even the damn earth itself, groaning as it spun on its axis. I tried to explain it to my doctor, but he just looked at me like I was crazy. Ran a bunch of tests, said my hearing was within normal range. Normal range, my ass. There's nothing normal about being able to hear a butterfly's wings flapping from a mile away. Work became almost impossible. How are you supposed to focus on spreadsheets when you can hear the electrical impulses firing in your coworkers' brains? And don't even get me started on trying to sleep. Ever tried to drift off when you can hear every single cricket in a 5-mile radius? I started isolating myself. Spent most of my time in my apartment, with noise-canceling headphones on. But even that wasn't enough. The sounds would always find a way in, like they were seeking me out. And then there were the flashbacks. God, the flashbacks. I'd be doing something totally normal, like making a sandwich or taking a shower, and suddenly I'd be back there. Back on that mountain, with gravity going haywire and time flowing backwards. I'd feel my body start to move in reverse, see that thing crawling towards me. It felt so real, you know? Like it was happening all over again. I'd come out of it gasping for breath, covered in sweat, not sure what was real and what wasn't. That was the worst part, I think. The not knowing. Was what happened on that mountain real? Or did I just have some kind of mental breakdown? And if it was real, could it happen again? I became obsessed with trying to make sense of it all. Spent hours online, researching quantum physics, alternate dimensions, time theory. Anything that might explain what I'd experienced. But the more I learned, the less sense it all made. I tried to go back to the mountain once. Thought maybe if I could see it again, touch it, it would help me process what had happened. But as soon as I got to the trailhead, I froze up. Couldn't make myself take a single step onto that path. The fear was just overwhelming. So I left. Drove home with my tail between my legs, feeling like a coward. But also feeling relieved. Like maybe some part of me knew that going back would be a terrible idea. The nightmares were the worst. Every night, it was the same thing. I'd be back on that mountain, but this time, I couldn't stop myself from walking backwards. Couldn't stop myself from floating away into that twisted, upside-down world. I'd wake up screaming, convinced that I was still there, still trapped. I tried everything to cope. Therapy, meditation, even medication. But nothing seemed to help. The sounds kept getting louder, the flashbacks more intense. It was like that experience had rewired my brain somehow, left me stuck halfway between this world and whatever that other place was. There were times I thought about ending it all, you know? Just to make it stop. To find some peace and quiet. But something always held me back. Some stubborn part of me that refused to give up, that insisted there had to be a way to live with this. And then, one day, something changed. I was sitting in a park, trying to enjoy the sunshine despite the cacophony of sounds assaulting my ears, when I heard it. That vibration. The same one from the mountain. For a moment, I panicked. Thought maybe it was all starting again. But then I realized, it wasn't coming from around me. It was coming from inside me. I closed my eyes, focused on that sound. And as I did, something incredible happened. All the other sounds, they didn't go away, exactly. But they aligned. Like an orchestra tuning up, all these disparate noises suddenly came together into this beautiful, impossible harmony. For the first time since I'd left that mountain, I felt peace. Like I was finally in tune with the world around me. Don't get me wrong, it's not like everything magically got better after that. I still have days where the sounds overwhelm me, still have nights where I wake up in a cold sweat, convinced I'm back on that impossible mountain. But now I have a way to cope. When things get too much, I close my eyes, focus on that vibration inside me, and let all the sounds of the world align. It's not a cure, but it's something. A way to live with what happened to me. I still don't know if what I experienced was real. Maybe it was all just some elaborate hallucination. Maybe I really did touch some other dimension, some place where the laws of physics don't apply. I don't think I'll ever know for sure. But you know what? I'm starting to think that maybe it doesn't matter. Real or not, it changed me. Made me see the world in a different way. Made me hear things I never could before. And yeah, sometimes that's terrifying. Sometimes it's overwhelming. But sometimes it's beautiful. Sometimes I hear things that make me realize just how amazing, how complex, how utterly magical this world really is. So I'm learning to live with it. Learning to embrace this new way of experiencing the world. It's not easy, and I don't think it ever will be. But it's my reality now, you know? And who knows? Maybe someday I'll find the courage to go back to that mountain. To face whatever's waiting for me there. But for now, I'm content to just listen. To hear the world in a way no one else can. Because that's the thing about experiences like this. They change you. Fundamentally alter the way you see and interact with the world. And you can fight it, can try to go back to the way things were before. Or you can embrace it. Can use it to see the world in a whole new way. Me? I'm choosing to embrace it. It's not always easy, and there are days when I wish I could just be normal again. But then I hear something, the sound of a flower blooming, or the whisper of the earth's magnetic field, and I remember. This gift, this curse, whatever you want to call it, it's part of me now. So if you're ever out in the woods, and you hear something strange, something that doesn't quite fit, don't ignore it. But don't chase it either. Just listen. Really listen. Because you never know what secrets the world might be whispering, if only you have the ears to hear them. As for me, I'm still here. Still listening. Still trying to make sense of a world that suddenly seems so much bigger, so much stranger than I ever imagined. And you know what? Despite everything, despite the fear and the confusion and the sleepless nights, I wouldn't have it any other way. Because now I know. Now I understand. The world is so much more than what we see on the surface. It's full of mysteries, of impossibilities, of things that defy explanation. And sometimes, if you're very lucky or very unlucky, depending on how you look at it, you might just get a glimpse behind the curtain. So here's my advice, for what it's worth. Keep your ears open. Keep your mind open. And if you ever find yourself face to face with the impossible, don't run from it. Embrace it. Because it might just change your life in ways you never imagined. And who knows? Maybe someday, you'll have a story of your own to tell. A story about the day the world stopped making sense, and started making magic instead. Until then, I'll be here, listening, waiting, and wondering what impossible thing I might hear next.